So buying plants can sometimes get really expensive, especially when you're trying to do a lot of plants on your property. And so, trying to think about what can make it more accessible for folks. And one of those is growing your own plants. I do that with my vegetable plants, but I want to give it a try for growing native perennial plants as well. So I watched a lot of webinars, I did a lot of research, and so decided to take a crack at it. And so this is my germination station. Basically what it is, it's just scrap wood that I've put together. They're not even nailed together, it's very wobbly. But I made a little space, and then I lined it with black plastic, and I put holes in the black plastic so water could drain out, and we put hardware cloth on this top frame, and it pulls over the top. And basically what this is supposed to do is protect our seeds while they overwinter. A lot of native plants, these perennial plants that I planted all over my yard, need cold stratification to be able to germinate. And so what that means is that these seeds have a seed coat on the outside, and they need something that breaks the seed coat to allow the plant to germinate. A lot of our vegetable plants don't need that. You can just stick them in the ground and they're going to grow, and they're bred to do that. But our wildflowers, they need to go through a process, and so sometimes that process is just having cold winters, and that coldness breaks down the seed coat. Sometimes they need multiple cycles, so their seeds come out in the end of the summer, and they need that summer, that warm, and then they need a cold winter, then they need next summer's warmth, and then they'll germinate. It really depends on the plant. Other ones need to be eaten by birds and go through their gullet and get scratched up by rocks. So there's a lot of different things that need to happen to different seeds to get them to germinate, but a lot of them just need some cold. So in here, what we wanted to do was build a place that the seeds could overwinter but be protected from mice, rats. I've never seen a rat on my property, but I'm sure they're here. Moles and voles and any little critter that would want to eat those seeds, because just like our plants, we have native animals here that want to eat them too. So when I was germinating my plants, I overwintered everything, so I needed something to overwinter them in. So I used pots, and you can use a lot of different types of pots. There's flat ones like this, there's quart size, little seed trays, and I use kind of a mix of everything. I am very fortunate in my job. I have access to a lot of planting pots because we do lots of restorations. But some of the things that you plant in are a little bit too big. They're like 1 gallon pots or 2 gallon pots that are a little bit too big to do this type of germination project. So what I actually did was go to some of our native plant nurseries, and I asked them for pots that they weren't using, that whether they were going to recycle, and I got a bunch of pots that way. And so I cleaned them. I did a mild bleach solution, and I just soaked everything in there because there are some viruses that can spread between plants, especially something coming from a greenhouse setting. It's more likely to have diseases than something in your backyard. But so I cleaned them, and then I put potting soil in these pots. And I know that during a lot of the webinars I watched, they said not to use potting soil, to use Pro Mix or something that has no fertilizer, but honestly I couldn't find it, and what I could find was really expensive. So I figured I'd just give it a shot with potting soil, and it worked. So one of the reasons I think that they probably said you need to use Pro Mix or something like that is that from a commercial standpoint, they need to get that highest germination rate possible. So the germination rate is how many seeds will germinate in a given amount of seeds. So if you have 100 seeds and you have a germination rate of 95, that means you expect 95 of those seeds will germinate into seedlings. And that's really important in a commercial setting. You need to maximize that. But as a home gardener, if you plant 100 seeds and say you only get a 30% germination rate, that's still 30 plants that you're gonna have. And I was okay with that. So I filled these up with potting soil, and then I put the seeds on top. So I actually planted 30 different species of native plants. Some of the plant species I bought packets from Toadshade. They have a great selection of native plant species. From Highlands Direct also has a bunch. I looked online, and I did some wild collection from my garden. I collected seeds from my plants, from friends' plants. We seed swapped. We actually mailed seeds back and forth with each other. And I also took a pollinator mix, and I sorted out all the seeds in different species, and I used that too to get 30 different plant species. So I put potting soil in, and then I sprinkled seeds on top, and then I put a little sand. And the sand was just to keep the seeds in the pot, especially when it would rain. Sometimes those seeds could bounce out, so it was just a little bit of protection. And then I took all the pots and the trays that I had, and I just put them in my germination station, pulled the lid closed, and that was it. So I did that in December and January. I did a couple of rounds, and then I didn't touch it. I didn't cover it. It got snowed on, it got rained on. It just was left alone. And come end of March, beginning of April, I just started seeing all these little cotyledons come up. And cotyledons are the embryonic leaves that are in all of our seeds. So sometimes plants are monocot, so they have one cotyledon that comes up, or they're dicots, and that means that 2 cotyledons that come up. But all of a sudden, there was all of these plants starting to germinate, and I actually got very overwhelmed because there was a lot of plants, and it worked much better than I had expected. And so in the end of April, beginning of May, I took all these trays out of my germination station, and I put them into my vegetable garden to get watered with my vegetables. But that was really no work on my part, because nature took care of it. These plants want to grow here. They're native to this region. They're used to this climate and conditions. So just putting them out and just letting them take care of themselves was the way to go. I didn't need expensive equipment. I didn't need a greenhouse. I didn't need an irrigation system. All I did was put them in here, let it get rained on, let it get sunshine, and then that's it. And so we can take a look at what things look like now. What I did was that I made a mistake of thinking that I wasn't going to do a very good job. And not to say that I did do a good job, but the plants were really happy in these pots. And so in a pot like this, I would have sometimes well over 100 plants. And they needed to be separated out into smaller containers because they were too crowded. So I spent a lot of time taking plants out of pots like this, so squeezing the pot to get the whole root mass out of all the 100 plants, and then slowly breaking the soil, and then taking out individual plants and then putting them into other trays, and you'll see that. And in here, this is a little maple that's growing, but these are little rattlesnake masters, and they came from seeds from Joe, who is on our stewardship committee, and he shared some seeds with me. And those are these little plants right here. And so all these need to come out of these trays and then go into bigger ones or go right into the ground. Next year, what I would like to do is put seeds directly in trays like this instead, because it was a lot of work breaking them all out of here. But again, I think we're going from maximizing yields and space, more in a commercial setting where you're trying to waste as little as possible, versus me having to sit there separating 100 plants. And I had, oh my goodness, probably like 60 things this size. So it was a lot of plants. Overall this year, I think I've grown probably close to 2,000 native herbaceous plants, and it's been a lot of work. So next year I'm gonna just make my life easier and seed into trays like this, and then when I need to pot up, all I do is squeeze the bottom, loosen the plant up, and then it comes out just like this, and then I can plant it into the bigger size. And I definitely will not be planting as many seeds because things worked out a lot better than I had anticipated. And I think that people should not be so intimidated to grow native plants. Again, they want to grow here, they want to be in this ecosystem of ours. So you shouldn't be afraid, and you should just give it a shot. Some things are going to grow well, some things are not going to grow as well as others, but then you just try again next year. Learn from others, share your information. You know, you can't get emotionally tied up in something not working the first year. We're all learning. But just try it, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to buy professional grade potting mix or pro mix. You know, you can get pots from local nurseries. Just ask them. A lot of them are very willing to give these away because they can't be recycled, so they need to be thrown away. So, you know, be resourceful, ask friends to seed swap, and just give it a try.